Hey, good morning, everyone. So I did my Facebook live last night, talking about the essentially the 5 steps that I took to help my body produce and balance out hormones. And so moving forward, what I'm going to be doing is essentially demonstrating, each of these steps. So I'm going to be starting out with vitamin D. I believe vitamin D is possibly one of the most important topics. Now, as I go, through these steps. And one of the reasons why, some of the trainings I do inside of the Facebook group and stuff like that is, a lot of these topics that that I cover and things that I talk about. I actually had someone, Raymond messaged me one time and asked me, he's like, hey, have you read like the controversy on, some of these topics? And I'll be the first one to admit it. And I'll be like straight up and honest that just about every single thing that has helped me, especially things that were major breakthroughs for my health, they all involve controversial topics. Vitamin D, fasting, alkaline water, distilled water. There is ketogenic. There's so many of these different topics that the more that I, read up, about them and understand, how health works, it's so interesting to me. It's so funny that it's almost like the world seems backwards to me. It's like what seems to be the norm, what seems to be normal. To me, it's actually like wow, like that's actually the opposite of what I believe we should be doing. So because of that, that's one of the reasons why I, for the most part, just share what I do, teach the theory behind what I do, but most importantly, I really just demonstrate. I like, do these things, in front of, people basically so that they just see like, hey, this is just, how I think and how I operate. And so when it comes to vitamin D, you're going to see how I basically boost my own vitamin D. And to me, boosting vitamin D, like I said, there's a lot of different, reasons. There's a lot of benefits to boosting vitamin D. One of them, and possibly the most important one for me, is the absorption of calcium. And calcium is really important. Now, again, I was a home brewer. As a home brewer, calcium was one of the main things that I would work with in in the brewing world, because without calcium, I could not brew beer. In fact, if you look up just about any recipe when it comes to like all grain brewing and using the right type of water, you're going to see a lot of homebrewers basically use what's called gypsum salt. You can go to a homebrew store and find out gypsum salt, which is basically calcium. And there's different kinds of these calciums basically, but without calcium, you cannot basically digest things. And in the body, calcium is really one of the main things that we would use to regulate pH. And so when it comes to my diet, there are things that I look at. One of them, like I said, is there's water, minerals, pH, temperature, and then gut bacteria. So pH, that's basically what makes my understanding about diet kind of unique, is because everyone, when they talk about diet, they talk about, oh, are you ketogenic, are you paleo, how many fats, carbs, and things do you eat. No one talks about pH when it comes to food. No one talks about how that food is going to be digested in the body. No one talks about, do you have the minerals that the body needs for proper digestion to activate the enzymes that break down food. Meanwhile, I'm thinking here like a brewer, without minerals, I cannot digest the starches in the grains. I cannot digest the protein, the nitrogen content, basically, and things like that. And so, but in the body, I know that we need the same, the same minerals. I know that we need calcium just as much. And so for me, taking up vitamin D, part of it is for my body to be able to absorb calcium and use calcium so that the body regulates its own pH. pH is a very, very, I guess, I don't know, difficult topic. It's not, it's not really simple to understand. I mean, there's some things that I can explain that are, somewhat simple, but really, all that I can do is just give my body these tools, these nutrients, and then the body just regulates itself, right? And so, and that's where intuition kind of like comes in, where I just know that my body needs that. I eat things, and then I kind of like feel, what is my body doing? How is my body regulating things? And so that's more or less what I'm going to guide you, as I go through this process, is how do I do these things? Because nobody really talks about these things. This just makes sense to me because of my experience from, fermenting, I guess, not only like, beer, but also foods, making sauerkraut, kimchi, all the different probiotics that I make, and, other things that I've experimented with. So I'm going to be demonstrating how I get my vitamin D, and you're going to see that, the things that I do, some of the things that I do for these, like I said, they're not things that you're going to see normal people do. And when I say normal, it's like quote unquote, is what the majority of people do. But again, I am not trying to be normal. I'm not trying to fit in. I'm not trying to be here to be cool and show you how cool my diet is just because it's called Beer Diet Project or anything like that. I'm here really to show you just what has worked for me. This is what has given me energy. This is how I was able to get my hair to stop falling off. This is how I clear my brain fog. This is how I did all of these things. And I'm just basically showing you, mostly because I have been there where I was being told things that, now that I look back, it just doesn't make sense. And I can now understand and see why there's this madness going on with people thinking that a little pill is going to solve your problems, when it's not. It's going to take a lot of hard work, and when I say hard work, really, it's really just creating habits and changing your mindset, opening up your mind, and really learning and understanding how the body works. Because this is really what this is about for me. I am researching and understanding my body, and really, I follow a lot of different people that have experienced, transformations in their health. Some people have done it through just the paleo diet. Some people have done it just through ketogenic diet. Some people have done it just through, being raw vegan. Some people have done it through carnivore, diets. And, there's crazy stuff out there that you see, even just fasting and things like that. I, for the most part, don't, like I said, I don't label myself as any of those. I almost think that, by doing so, you kind of like limit yourself, and you kind of like box yourself into where, if you're only eating ketogenic, I mean, good luck trying to, go out and have a normal lifestyle. Same thing if you're just like eating carnivore, good luck going out and trying to live a normal lifestyle. Even with what I do, I guess you can say that it's hard to, go out and live a normal lifestyle. But at least for me, I know that I have a little bit more freedom to where I can experiment, try out different things, try different foods, and then I just basically pay attention to my gut health, my digestive system. Because at the end of the day, really what it is all about for me, I am basically paying attention to what's growing in my gut, because that's where our immune system is. That's what really controls our digestion, our moods, our hormone production, a lot of these other things. And so I've tried out like all kinds of different things, and that's one of the reasons why, even though like most of the time I do ketogenic, primarily plant-based, I'm not afraid to do more of the meat-based type of ketogenic diets. I'm also not afraid to intake or to basically eat sugar, right? But for me, now it's more a matter of like, okay, now I understand that, hey, if I'm eating sugar, really what I'm essentially looking at is like, something's got to eat up that sugar inside of my body, and it's either going to be a good probiotic, good yeast, or depending on what kind of sugar, what kind of like sweets you're eating, it will probably end up being some sort of wild yeast or bad bacteria. That's the issue with sugar. And I think that sugar really what one of the main roles, as I'm kind of like seeing it now, is that sugar is actually like a very useful tool when it comes to growing the good yeast and bacteria that we need for our gut health. And it's interesting because I'm kind of like learning a little bit more about soil health, and understanding that what we are really dealing with when it comes to a lot of these things that that I share and things that I'm basically learning about is really an entire ecosystem where the way that I'm seeing like my own diet is that I am essentially, if I don't watch my diet, if I don't watch what I eat, it's not really just about what I eat and my health. It's really more about the footprint that we are leaving in the planet. And here's what I mean by that is, to me, you know, eating meat, for example, is kind of like a controversial topic, right? Some people say like, well, that's one of the reasons why people are getting unhealthy, blah blah blah. And so this is kind of like the raw vegan community versus the carnivore community, I guess you would call it. Whereas for me, the way that I see it is that you can't really have one without the other, right? You can't really grow plants in all these good ecosystem without cattle, right? And this is where I am fascinated by a lot of these topics. My grandfather was a cattle rancher, and so understanding that, hey, without cattle, without the without the manure and all these things, you cannot have all these fertile soils. You cannot have all these rich, nutrient rich soils. And I think that that's one of the things that I'm seeing happening in our food world, is that we are essentially being fed all kinds of I guess foods that are just nutrient depleted, because they are growing foods using primarily pesticides and these fertilizers, just relying on NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. But they are devoid of all the other minerals that are really truly needed. And so I think that by understanding diet and understanding what we truly need inside of our bodies, not only are we going to basically make ourselves healthy, but we're also going to help with the environment, with the planet, because we're basically going to be growing better foods. And so I think that this is a bigger picture. It's not just about me, it's not just about you, it's really about leaving a good footprint and basically learning how to take care not just of ourselves but also the planet. And so this is, I guess, these are topics that I wasn't really planning going there today, but I did, I tend to rant every now and then. So anyways, I wanted to share that though, especially because, like I said, I'm learning a little bit more about it. And one of the reasons why soil health though is important is because gut health, to me, is very similar to soil health. Soil health is just like gut health, just like brewing beer. It really relies on water, minerals, pH, temperature, and the right bacteria in the soil. That's basically what we are dealing with. So the more you learn about these topics, the more that health is going to make sense to you. If you watch the live training that I did last night, you can kind of start to see how I connect the dots, how by boosting my vitamin D, not only do I get to absorb more calcium, which regulates pH, but you also kind of understand that, hey, vitamin D doesn't just work in isolation. It needs kind of like works hand in hand with cholesterol. Cholesterol, another controversial topic. But you know what? I started to learn about it and started to learn how to incorporate that into my diet. So you'll see you'll see how I intake cholesterol. The easiest way is just eggs. The egg yolks, that's really where the best come. But again, when it comes to egg yolks, it's not just about you cannot just go to the store and pick up any kind of egg, because the nutrients inside of the eggs really depend on the health of the chicken. The health of the chicken, again, really depends on the health of the soil where the chicken was raised. And so I guess this is kind of like why, for me, learning about soil health and all of these things, it's important to me. And these are things that I pay attention to. So again, it's not just, are you ketogenic, are you paleo, but really, what's the food source? Where is your food coming from? What is the health of the, whether you are plant-based or, animal-based diet, what is the food source? Like, where does it come from? What's the health of the soil where that food was grown? That's the other thing that I look at that other people don't look at. So again, it goes back to, was the soil healthy? Did it have the right amount of water, minerals, pH, temperature, and the right bacteria? Because that's essentially what you are eating. A lot of people, they're, like I said, I kind of make fun of one of my friends who, growing up in Mexico, like there's things that I see, and and not just in Mexico, but like even traveling around the world. Actually, my friend Chris and I, we went to Europe, did a Eastern Europe trip, and we were down at, I think it was Istanbul, or I want to say it was Turkey, but we went to this market, and we had fresh seafood. They had this fish, and so we ordered this fish, right? And in a lot of like third world countries, when you order fish, they basically give you the entire thing, and so like the entire fish, basically like eyes, mouth, and everything. Like you get to see everything. A lot of people will see that and like, oh, I cannot do that. I cannot have eyes looking at me. And like, so to me though, that's something that I noticed, and I saw growing up. So it was kind of like, I guess, normal to me. And I would make fun because he grew up basically eating fish sticks. So to him, fish basically comes out of a box and it's breaded and it's served in little, fish sticks kind of thing. And I look at those like, no, that's not fish. Like the texture isn't even right for him. But that's basically what we are dealing with, is that people have kind of forgotten where food really comes from and what it actually looks like, what it actually feels like and tastes like. And eggs is another one that I see where a lot of people think that all eggs are just white and they're these tiny little things, and the yolk is kind of like yellow. But no, when you actually get to see like good healthy chickens, and you actually get to experience what a good egg looks like and tastes like, and how you feel after eating it, there are differences. Number one, like the egg yolk is not, it's not a light yellow color. It's actually a deep, rich amber-like, orange-like color. The shells are usually not just white. There's different colors, right? You'll see like light little green, light blue, different shades and tones of them, and like brown and stuff like that. And the shell, if it's good, it's going to be full of calcium, which makes it really hard. Not like easy, it's not as easy to break to where you just it takes more than like a little tap on the counter to crack them open. And again, you're getting, that's another source of calcium, and that's how like, hey, is the egg good or not? And so these are things that, again, I pay attention to, just because it makes sense to me that if I'm going to be putting food into my body, the only reason why I'm putting food into my body is so that I can get the nutrients from the food. And so for me, eating conventional grown food that is just raised with NPK, devoid of minerals, the way that I see that is, take an apple for example. If you eat an apple that's devoid of minerals, your body needs those minerals to digest and break down the apple. And if the apple doesn't have the minerals that the body needs in order to digest it and break it down, then the body needs to source it out from itself. And so this is how people basically are becoming dehydrated, chronically dehydrated and demineralized. Same thing with bread. You're eating bread and it doesn't have the minerals and or the water content and that basically digest and break down the bread. Your body's going to basically source out that mineral and water content from you. Our bodies are salt water. Like there's 18 gallons of salt water basically is what we're made up of. And so you're eating all of this food that doesn't have these nutrients, and instead of nourishing the body, basically getting those minerals and water, that's what your body really needs, it's actually taking it away from your body because your body needs to source that out. And it's so funny now that I think about it, when people hear me that I say, hey, I did a 7-day water fast, and they're like, well, isn't your body cannibalizing itself and eating itself out? It's like, no. And what you don't understand is that if you're not eating the right foods, your body's actually eating itself out because you're eating the wrong foods and not giving your body the actual nutrients that it needs. So that's the kind of stuff that, like I said, like for me, it's it makes sense. This is how my transformation happened. This is just by understanding just these 5 components: water, minerals, pH, temperature, and bacteria. All right, I think I lost you guys for a second, but anyways, all right, I'm almost at work, so if you were not able to join me live last night, the replay is up inside of the Facebook group. If you're not in the Facebook group, or if you just want to like get an idea of what what the hormone bootcamp that I'm putting together is going to be about, I have a link in the description of this live video. The 5 steps that I basically follow to produce more hormones and balance out my hormones. This weekend I'm going to basically be working on the curriculum for the first challenge, which is going to be vitamin D. So stay tuned for that. And if I don't see you guys over the weekend, I hope you guys enjoy your weekend, and I will talk to you guys later. Have a good one.